Our minds use mental shortcuts to process information quickly, but these shortcuts often lead us astray. Understanding cognitive biases helps us make better decisions in business, leadership, and life. This video explores 10 powerful biases that shape how we think, choose, and act every single day. Cognitive biases are systematic patterns of deviation from rational judgment. They are predictable errors our brains make when processing information. These biases influence everything from hiring to investment strategies, making recognition the first step toward better decision-making. We will explore 10 key biases, including confirmation bias, which is seeking evidence that supports existing beliefs, and anchoring bias, over-relying on initial information. We will also look at the availability heuristic, loss aversion, and the sunk cost fallacy. Confirmation bias is the tendency to search for, interpret, and recall information that confirms your pre-existing beliefs. We naturally gravitate toward supporting evidence while dismissing contradictory information. This bias creates echo chambers where our views are constantly reinforced. Confirmation bias shows up in 3 ways: selective search, where we actively look for supporting information; biased interpretation of facts; and dismissing contradictions that challenge our assumptions. In the workplace, a manager might only notice the mistakes of an underperforming team member, reinforcing their initial assessment. Personally, when researching a purchase, people spend more time on positive reviews supporting their preference while dismissing negative ones. Anchoring bias occurs when we rely too heavily on the first piece of information encountered, the anchor, using it as a reference point for all subsequent judgments. This anchor, even if arbitrary, profoundly influences decisions, particularly in negotiations and pricing. Initial numbers stick and become mental anchors that are difficult to adjust away from. Subsequent estimates are unconsciously pulled toward this anchor. Remarkably, even random or irrelevant numbers can serve as powerful starting points. This program is brought to you by the Series of Thoughts team. In salary negotiations, the party who mentions a number first often sets the anchor. For example, if a candidate anchors at $120,000, the final offer is likely to be closer to that figure. Real estate agents use this when the listing price influences subsequent offers. The availability heuristic is our tendency to overestimate the likelihood of events that are easy to recall or imagine. Vivid or emotionally charged examples lead us to believe they are more common than they statistically are. This explains why people fear rare events like plane crashes more than frequent ones like car accidents. Availability misleads us because vivid stories override data, making a single product failure outweigh positive reviews. Recent events feel more likely, causing disproportionate investment. Finally, emotional examples stick, making them seem more representative of reality. In decision-making, leaders might become overly cautious about innovation if their last product launch failed, ignoring a history of successful launches. Medical professionals might overdiagnose conditions they have seen recently, despite constant statistical prevalence. Now, let's explore loss aversion and why losing something hurts significantly more than gaining an equivalent thing feels good. Loss aversion is a powerful bias. Research shows that losses feel approximately twice as painful as equivalent gains feel pleasurable. This asymmetry leads people to reject favorable bets and influences 85% of us to prefer the status quo to avoid potential losses. In leadership, loss aversion causes people to hold on to failing projects to avoid admitting defeat. It also leads to risk-averse innovation, where organizations avoid bold moves due to the potential for loss. Investors also hold losing positions too long, hoping to break even. Status quo bias is our preference for things to remain the same, even when change would be beneficial. We overvalue the comfort of current conditions. This bias explains why organizational change is so challenging, as people resist new processes simply because they are different. We resist change because familiarity feels safer, even if current systems are outdated. Change also requires effort, and staying with the status quo is easier. Finally, change introduces uncertainty anxiety, making predictable mediocrity preferable to uncertain improvement. At work, organizations continue using legacy software because this is how we've always done it, despite productivity losses. In finance, people stick with default, low-interest accounts because making a change feels risky, missing out on better returns. The sunk cost fallacy is continuing to invest in a failing effort simply because of past investment. Rationally, only future costs and benefits should matter, but emotionally, we struggle to let go of unrecoverable resources, leading us to throw good resources after bad. The fallacy unfolds with an initial investment, followed by warning signs that the investment isn't working. Instead of cutting losses, escalation of commitment occurs, investing even more resources. This leads to mounting losses, justified by the desire to not waste what's already spent. Executives face this with underperforming product lines that receive continued funding because too much was invested to stop now. The key to overcoming this bias is asking, if I were making this decision today with no prior investment, what would I choose? The halo effect occurs when one positive trait, like confidence or eloquence, influences our entire perception of a person. We assume that someone who excels in one area must excel in others, powerfully shaping hiring and performance evaluations. The halo effect makes us mistake confidence for competence. Attractive people are often assumed to be more capable. Similarly, eloquent speakers are perceived as smarter, even if their ideas lack substance. In organizations, candidates from prestigious universities receive a halo that overshadows actual fit and skills. In performance reviews, excellence in one visible area can lead to higher ratings across all categories, creating a generalized positive impression. Recency bias is the tendency to give disproportionate weight to the most recent information, while discounting older data and long-term patterns. What happened yesterday seems more important than what happened last year. This bias commonly affects performance reviews and market analysis. A workplace example illustrates this. An employee's strong performance from January to October can be overshadowed in the December review by one visible mistake in November. The manager is heavily influenced by the recent error, despite months of excellence. In market analysis, recency leads to short-term overreaction. Investors often assume recent market movements will continue indefinitely. The antidote is intentionally reviewing longer time horizons and historical data before acting solely on recent events. Overconfidence bias is overestimating our abilities, knowledge, and the precision of our predictions. We are consistently more certain than we should be, underestimating risks and complexity. Experts and leaders are often most vulnerable to this bias, which can lead to costly mistakes. Overconfidence takes several forms. Overestimating knowledge, which leads to decisions without adequate research, overestimating precision in forecasts, and overestimating ability to accomplish tasks faster or better, leading to missed deadlines. Overconfident leaders launch products without adequate testing and enter markets with unrealistic timelines, underestimating threats. Studies show that when experts are 80% confident in predictions, they are only correct about 60% of the time. This accuracy gap has serious consequences. The fundamental attribution error is attributing others' behavior to their personality, but our own to external circumstances. If someone is late, we think they are disorganized. If we are late, it's due to traffic. This double standard harms how we judge colleagues. When someone else makes a mistake, the interpretation is that they are incompetent. When you make the same mistake, the interpretation is that the situation was difficult. This asymmetry damages teamwork and prevents us from finding the real causes of problems. In teams, managers may attribute a missed deadline to poor work ethic, ignoring workload or resource constraints, leading to unfair reviews. In conflicts, we see our own actions as reasonable responses, but others' actions as revealing poor character, making resolution difficult. We can overcome biases by first building awareness. Then, slow down important decisions to question your first instinct. Actively seek contrary views and rely on objective data and systematic analysis. Finally, use collaborative decisions and structured frameworks. We can't eliminate biases entirely, but we can recognize them and develop counter-strategies. The best decision makers acknowledge their biases, build systems to check them, and create environments where their thinking is challenged. Start by focusing on one bias from this video and actively watching for it in your next decision.